good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, you thirsty bunch of beer drinkers, whenever and wherever you're tuning in from. Thanks for pressing play and supporting a Canadian podcast. I'm Troy Birch with Great Lakes, Ontario's local brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery based right here in Etobicoke, who brings you this here Between Two Fermenters, the podcast where craft beer and conversation collide, straight from the tanks to your ears. Today on the pod, I'll be joined by someone you've heard from in the past, a fella who truly lives and breathes craft beer advocacy. And I should hope so, it's his job. Scott Simmons, the president of the Ontario Craft Brewers Association, is back to talk pints and politics. In this episode, we'll be diving deep into the recent provincial budget, the news, and the reaction for and from craft breweries was nothing short of excitement. The details have been described as game-changing, monumental, historic, and well, exactly what this industry needs at this moment in time. Scott will be dissecting what was announced, what's still missing, and most importantly, what it all means for Ontario craft brewers and Ontario craft beer drinkers in this province. From tax structures and retail reform to red tape reduction and future government modernization opportunities for breweries, Scott's here to unpack it all for you. We'll also talk about what the OCB is pushing for next, how breweries can stay informed and involved, and where Scott sees things headed in the next year or two. Whether you're a brewery owner, an industry professional, into politics, or just someone who loves great beer made right here in the province, this podcast episode is for you. But before we get to Mr. Simmons, I want to do a little bit of propaganda here on a special beer that just made its return. You know, the one that features weird tan lines, sand in awkward places, and slightly embarrassing dance-offs. Yes, it's our favorite time of year. It's summertime, and this is the beer for it. GLB Summer Ale. That's right. Ginger and Lemon got together at a pool party and said we should totally start a band. And the next thing you know, you have this classic American wheat ale with a sun-kissed zing. So here's the sunshine, laughter, and a beer that knows how to have fun. And it's now available across Ontario at your local LCBO, and one in my hand right now. So it's time for you to crack a beer, kick back, and let Scott tell you everything you need to know about pints and politics. Hang tight. We'll be right back. Oh, that's better.
It's Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery. We believe in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. It's Great Lakes Brewery. Order online for free local home delivery. In the GTA, good times and amazing beer. That's GLB.
Hello, Scott Simmons. Welcome back to Between Two Fermenters.
Very glad to be back. 1 year and 1 day since we last did this.
That's right. 1 year and 1 day ago. The second time you've joined me here in glorious Etobicoke. But this time it's for a conversation centered around the great news that was announced in the Ontario budget. But before we get to that, you have a beer in your hand, and I brought this one special for you because I know this is one of your faves. Sunnyside, go ahead and crack that, and let's get this conversation started.
This is ice cold. This is just beautiful on a Thursday afternoon. Let's do it.
And, you know, I think that can was just packaged earlier today. So, you know, we don't mess around at Great Lakes. It's for the president of the OCB. He gets the freshest stuff possible.
Lower alcohol session IPAs.
Yeah.
Wheelhouse.
Well, this summer ale is 4.5%. And if you're listening, you can probably tell that I have a cold. It sounds like that, or I have not taken up smoking. But this ginger in this beer is feeling really nice on the throat. So Scott, you ready to do this? Because we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unpackage as it pertains to the Ontario government releasing its budget back on May 15th. So if you're ready, let's jump in.
All set. Let's go.
So to kick things off, I think I'm going to offer a hearty congratulations to you, the OCB Board of Directors, the folks at Policy Concepts, which I'm sure you'll talk about later, and every beer drinker who reached out to their local MPP on the issue of taxation for this historic win in the 2025 Ontario budget. I know how long it took and the effort that went into getting to where we are today. So on behalf of all of us, it's a big congratulations to you and the team.
Thank you, sir.
So for those who haven't caught the first episode with you, that was episode 10. If you go back down below, you'll be able to find that. You can listen to that and learn all about Scott. But if you can provide a quick recap of your role with the OCB, along with a brief overview of the work you've been engaged in with the province since you took over as president.
Started in August of 2017 as president, so that's been 8 years. Other experience in the brewing industry, I spent 6 years at the beer store head office in the early 2000s, 1 year at Lakeport in Hamilton.
I always forget about that.
And in between was CEO of Golf Canada, and this being RBC Canadian Open Week, I have my eye on the leaderboard.
As mentioned off the top, we're here today because there were some pretty significant changes announced on May 15th in the way in which craft beer will be taxed. That was part of the 2025 Ontario budget that Peter Bethlenfalvy, the Minister of Finance, tabled. Now, I'm sure it's probably no surprise that you, as the president of the OCB, were given a heads up before the public announcement. How excited were you to hear the news, and how hard was it to not go out there and shout it out loud?
Well, I was absolutely thrilled, as you can imagine. I didn't get a lot of heads up. I had a call early that morning on the 15th to get the news, and of course was sworn to secrecy, so that was hard not to share that news. But they did a good job of keeping it under wraps until it was announced.
Yeah. So you had no prior knowledge before. You knew something was coming. The OCB knew something good may be included in the budget.
I was asked that question hundreds of times, as you can imagine, in the spring. And the way I answered it is this: we've given them a full comprehensive proposal. I don't think we're going to get everything we asked for, but I'm very confident we're going to get something.
It's something. And so when you did hear the news, what was the first kind of reaction that you did have?
Well, absolute ecstasy. I mean, I was so thrilled for everyone who's listening. A 50% reduction in the microbrewery basic beer tax is massive. It's about $20 a hectoliter. So, if you've got a 5,000 hect brewery, that's $100,000 right off the bat.
And so for the math out there, like 1 hectoliter equals 100 liters of beer. So try to do the conversion in your head. But so why don't you tell listeners about what was in the budget that was so great for the industry that made you, want to do cartwheels in your office?
Well, the item that got obviously most of the press was the one we just talked about, the 50% reduction. So the microbrewery basic tax rate went from $39.75 to $19.88. And then the draft rates were also cut in half. They're slightly lower than that. I don't have those numbers in front of me. Those same reductions were applied to what's called the Small Brewers Manufacturers Tax Credit, which is really a program that only applies to larger breweries above 49,000 hectoliters. So that was good news too. That's a very complicated formula, which we won't get into today, but that slope reduces the amount of credit you get as you grow bigger. The other thing that we got for the larger brewers, the Small Brewers Manufacturers Tax Credit, they're able to report their annual production now either using last year's numbers or an average of the previous 5 years. And why does that matter? Brewers who are growing rapidly can possibly use the 5-year average to keep their production volume down, which would lower their taxes. There was some other, I don't want to call them smaller points, but there's been some issues with contract brewing in the industry, and we got rid of some of the red tape that was causing some problems. So microbrewers can now contract out, if they want, with what's called a small manufacturer. Anyone under 49,000 hex is called a microbrewer to the government. Anyone between 49,000 and 300,000 hex is called a small manufacturer. The big guys are just called manufacturers. Yeah. So there was changes that affect the first two groups.
And which is the majority, more than the majority of the representation of OCB.
Well, at the moment, there's only 2 brewers above 49,000 hectoliters, but those 2 brewers are incredibly important to our industry. And it's important that we finish the play on some of the things we've advocated for, because everything I just said was what was announced, but what was also very encouraging to us and to the board was the signaling of other things that the government still plans to do, and it's in writing, and I'm happy to go through that as well.
Yeah, we're going to get to that a little bit later in the episode, but maybe you can tell us too, what does it mean for the breweries here in the province, from, as you just said, the very small, so the under 5,000 hectoliter breweries up until the 100,000 hectoliter breweries. What does it mean for them, the news and the budget? What impact will it have?
Well, I think it'll be different for every brewery. As you know better than most, every brewery is built differently, has different issues going on, but basically it's going to free up some cash. So one of the things that we were saying to the government when we were advocating for this is, with all the retail expansion that's gone on, if craft breweries are going to be able to compete, they're going to need to invest. And that will be different again by brewery, whether it's hiring more staff, buying another truck, expanding the brewery, what have you.
Sales team, POS material,
anything. And they're cash strapped for all the reasons we all know what's happened over the last 5 years. So we really advocated with the government that they needed to lower the taxes so that craft breweries can invest and be competitive in this new marketplace. So simply put, what do these tax changes mean? We're going to be more competitive in the new marketplace.
Yeah, cost of inputs, cost of ingredients, cost of things like insurance, gas, everything has gone up over the last number of years of inflation. But the rate in which the price of your beer has gone up has not matched that. And so breweries have been for many years eating the cost of all the new increases in gas or glass, increases in hops, shot up dramatically over the last number of years, malted barley. So with this tax reduction, if you will, that money saved can then go back into, one, maybe keeping breweries that were really struggling alive for another couple of years, but two, to reinvest into growing their equipment or getting new staff, like you said. As a craft beer supporter, as a consumer, what does it mean for them, the people propping up the industry by buying the beer?
Well, again, if craft breweries are more competitive, they're going to be more competitive getting out to more of the new retail locations. All these changes were about choice and convenience, and really what the government was trying to deliver to consumers with retail expansion was more choice and convenience. So hopefully there's going to be more craft beer on more retail shelves so that consumers can choose from a wider variety of craft products going forward.
And we're going to talk about what's next later on, as I mentioned, but that 20% shelf space number that's still out there, has there been any wiggle room, or has there been any, hey, with this new era, this new world, maybe we should broaden that to 30, 40, 50%?
We haven't had those discussions yet because we fought hard to get the 20%, and that's something that sometimes goes under the radar because we're still the only jurisdiction in the world, I think, that is able to achieve something like that. But unless it's enforced, it's not as effective as it could be. So right now we're working with the AGCO to make sure it is enforced in, for example, the new C-store channel, where 20% is the law. But as you probably know, and people listening know, you walk into a C-store, you probably don't see 20% on the shelf.
Of craft beer.
Yeah. There's a lot of education that needs to happen. The AGCO is doing a ton of inspections, enforcement. You could see penalties in the future. But right now, craft share of C-stores is much lower than we'd like it to be. But quite frankly, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're only getting 5 to 10% of the shelf, you're going to get 5 to 10% of the sales. So,
and like
that's
you
where
said,
we're at.
Investment in the POS, investment in sales support, and all of that. If you don't have it, you can't. There's no competition. And that 20% has been a real eye opener for provinces like Nova Scotia, who are going out and saying, hey, if Ontario's got C-stores and it's working, they've actually set a 20% threshold, so let's shoot for that as well too. So I think that's a nice a carrot to dangle that other provinces are starting to emulate Ontario, and maybe we shoot for that 30-40% next, which is good.
Let's get the 20%
enforced first. Yeah. So tariffs are, the top of mind all over the place. We just heard the other day that now 50% tariff for aluminum coming into the U.S. So recent discussions around the aluminum tariffs have raised concern about increased production costs for breweries. I know a lot of breweries are, shitting their pants with all this news. In Ontario, about 100% of the craft breweries can their beer. So how does this news help with that?
Well, it's long, complicated answer, but I'll give you the short one. So right now, there's a tariff on Canadian raw aluminum that goes to the States. That's what's going to go from 25 to 50. Canada has yet to retaliate with 50% on cans coming back. So we'll see what happens. I mean, even this morning in the news, you see Prime Minister Carney talking about we're in negotiations. Maybe this is going to be alleviated. You also see Premier Ford talking about bringing manufacturing back to Canada. Ever since these tariffs were announced earlier in the year, there's been a lot of people asking, why don't we manufacture our own 473 mLs here in Canada? And it's a question that's hard to answer. But I think this has been eye-opening for government at all levels. And I think there's a lot of work going on right now to maybe remedy that and build some manufacturing capacity here in Canada.
Yeah, it's from what I understand, it's very, very expensive to reformat your whole shop, essentially, to do a different size. But at the same time, a lot of these can manufacturers here in Canada, again, from what I understand, is they're already at capacity with the pops and the soups and cans of the world. So, fingers crossed for someone like us who go through, 5.5 to 7 million cans a year. That would be a very good thing to have them made right here in Canada.
Well, let's just hope that this is alleviated quickly.
Yes.
Because it would be a huge, massive cost to the bottom line of craft breweries.
But with this news, the budget news, there is, I guess, a silver lining that if it does happen, it couldn't happen at a better time because the money saved on the provincial beer tax can potentially help offset some of these tariff costs. Over at the LCBO, Scott, they've been directed to promote and prioritize small producers and Ontario-made products. And I think they have been for a number of years, but it seems to be just more now with the Made in Canada, Support Canada movement. It's, I guess, it's easier to say that, hey, we're actually going to go ahead and do this. So what specific actions or policies would you like to see implemented to ensure craft breweries benefit from this directive? I know this is a sticky point with you, or you've been working on this for a while, so...
Well, the LCBO has long been the biggest partner of the Ontario craft beer industry. They sell more craft beer than any other retail channel in the province. But I've always felt that they could do more, respectfully. And we pushed hard for that. And last summer, Minister of Finance sent a letter to the LCBO kind of mandating them to put together a new strategy to support Ontario producers, not just craft breweries, but craft wineries, cideries, et cetera. And there's a great team that I'm working with right now at the LCBO, great people. They've always been great partners, but they're putting together a full strategic plan on how to increase their support of Ontario-owned small beverage alcohol manufacturers. And there's a lot that's been announced already. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Yeah, please.
I mean, the whole program is about Support Ontario. So they did a new product call. They had 108 applications from our members. 20 to 30 products were selected for that. So that wouldn't have happened if they hadn't pulled all the U.S. product off the shelf. I think that's going to continue, by the way, long term.
Sorry to cut you off, though, too. There wasn't too many Ontario or a U.S.-based brands that were actually pulled off the shelf because by definition, and this is you talk to any craft brewery, you get this, well, this is kind of bullshit, but they're owned elsewhere in the world, but they're produced in Canada. Yeah,
U.S.-owned, made and manufactured beer, there wasn't a lot of them on the shelf. So it's a lot different than wine. Yeah. A lot of U.S. wines pulled. There was a lot of room for Ontario craft wine products. Not the same for beer. But yes, there has been some sentiment that U.S.-owned but Canadian-made should also be pulled off the shelf.
Saskatchewan tried to do that, and it quickly got, reversed.
So that hasn't happened to date. My focus isn't on advocating for that. It's to simply advocate for more for Ontario craft beer.
For sure.
There's a new program, hyper-local program, whereby craft breweries can get automatic listings in their 15 closest stores that's being rolled out as we speak. Yep. There was a great program launched for...
That's good for the smallest of the breweries that have product that they can get to those stores, because then it guarantees them some shelf space.
Yeah,
in a market that already might know them too. So.
Yeah, there's over 300 craft breweries in Ontario. A lot of them don't have a chance to get into the LCBO. Yeah. They're so small, so this is kind of a hyper-local program. Mm-hmm. There's this has gone under the radar, but hopefully people who hear this now will act on it. They're actually offering free tastings for Ontario craft breweries. And I was really disappointed that I think only 2 or 3 breweries took the LCBO up on it. But if you call the LCBO, they can give you the details, but you can go in now and book free tastings. Obviously, you have to pay for the product, et cetera. Yeah. But you can bring, I believe it's LCBO consultants that do it, but there's no charge to it. The OCB merchandising program that we've been running for a decade has grown. So those that are involved in it, there's so many stores in the end aisle program, there's so many stores in the shelf extender program and the mini thematic program. The store numbers have increased in every program. I was pushing for that. There's a lot more. They're going to do more beer ambassador training, which is always helpful.
We're heavily involved in something like that right now. So that we're going to be working with the LCBO on doing some video for beer ambassadors, some training seminars. So we're really excited about that, because they're gonna, film crew coming in, and we're gonna showcase the beers that we produce, and beer ambassadors can go out and talk more knowledgeably about them.
Well, and I was involved in the LCBO in setting that up, and we decided to take a different tact. Typically when LCBO product consultants go into a craft brewery, it's all about the technical side. Mm-hmm. How do we make beer in a craft brewery? We think everybody knows that now, and we decided to kind of go a little bit broader and talk about, and this is all about Support Ontario. What makes an Ontario craft brewery different from a foreign-owned manufacturer? Like, why should you support them? And it's all about economic impact in the local community. Craft breweries are very concerned about sustainability, community involvement.
Community is huge, yep.
All these things that...
Innovation.
Yes. And we all win when we support Ontario craft breweries. Everybody wins. The consumer wins. The province wins through economic impact, more jobs. There's a great stat from the CFIB that when we support local, 66 cents of every dollar we spend stays in the community. If you buy from a foreign-owned company locally, 11 cents stays in the community. So multiply that by tens of thousands of purchases, and it adds up.
Yeah, for sure. Municipalities win on it too. It's more employment in the municipality, more taxes paid. So the good news doesn't just end, though, with what was in the May 15th announcement. What's to come in 2026? Because I think as great as the news was about the 50%, that what's to come is really exciting for a lot of breweries.
Yeah, it's complicated, but I'll try to give you the simple answer. So we were thrilled with the budget announcement, absolutely thrilled. But if you go back, and I think I referred earlier to our overall proposal that we've been pushing for 2 years, what we got May 15th was just a part of that. The exciting thing for us is that in the budget, the government put in writing a commitment to, I'll call it, finish the play on some of the other things we've been advocating for, which are in no particular order, even lowering taxes further for the microbreweries at the front end, and actually creating, if you think about it like a staircase, a more progressive and fair approach to taxation in the province. In addition to that, make the structure marginal. And what I mean by that is, if those listening are familiar to how federal excise works, even the largest brewers pay a very tiny amount of excise at lower volumes. I think this is critically important for our industry because, again, to make a long story short, right now, if 2 breweries want to merge in Ontario, it's very punitive from a tax perspective because you go much higher on the cliff or on the slope. If it's marginal, you're still going to pay the lower taxes at the front end. You're going to pay higher taxes on the new volume. So we're pushing for that progressive marginal. I mentioned earlier the small brewers manufacturers tax credit. We're pushing to get rid of it. It's not necessary in 2025, and it's too complicated to explain to your listeners. But we want to get rid of that, and just as brewers get beyond 49,000 hex, just have this progressive fair rate. Yeah. Right now, you reach maximum taxes in Ontario at 200,000 hectoliters. We think it should be pushed to 300,000 hectoliters, which will flatten that slope even further, so the larger brewers would pay less per hectoliter.
And it's different in every province, right? There's 400, there's 300, there's 350, 450. And so Ontario, we're pushing for 3.
Well, that's the definition right now of a small manufacturer in Ontario. And, it's better than 200,000. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And there's, I don't want to be a, Debbie Downer, but it's hard to envision right now a brewery in Ontario that could get to the 200,000 hectoliter mark without absorbing someone else and expanding nationally.
Well, exactly. And we've seen that happen nationally, but it won't happen again in Ontario unless we get this marginal structure.
Yeah. We've seen it in BC,
right?
But then they have to go national. There's only, one brewery that I can think of in Quebec that's over the, let's say the 120,000 hec, and they're only in Quebec. If they were to go outside the province, we might be able to see, a brewery kind of get into the 200s, but there's only like 3 or 4 in Canada, and they're legacy breweries who kind of own their province. So it'll be interesting to see. But
everything we've talked about up to this point is about taxes, but the government review was about taxes and fees.
Yeah.
So the other thing that they signaled in the budget, and we're working with them closely on this, is how is cost of service going to work going forward, and how is wholesale pricing going to work going forward? Because, again, to simplify this, we need to ensure that whatever mechanism is put into place, it protects craft brewery margins. Yeah.
And I don't think we want to talk about the markups and, the progressive scale is great to kind of lay it out like that, but the cost of service, the markups, that's, sometimes it's even above people that work in the breweries' heads. So consumers out there, it's just additional money that we don't make or we have to pay in order to play in this industry.
Well, just a quick reminder, the LCBO cost of out-of-store cost of service is roughly $70 a hectoliter, a little more than that. But that has been waived by the provincial government.
For the 2-year EIA.
Up until the end of 2025. So that was a massive win for our industry because...
It's real money.
It's real money. $70 a hectoliter that's going into brewery pockets right now to be able to invest. Same reason we talked about with the tax cut. But it's critical we work with the government to find out what's going to happen on January 1st. And what's going to replace that current cost of service.
So that's on the what's next for the OCB, I take it.
Absolutely.
And so just one point of clarification, Scott, and I'm going to just say this with all due respect. I think for Great Lakes, the money's not going to go into the pocket. It's just going to come back and it's going to go right out. We've already looked at identifying things like hiring. Where are we going to put that money that we're now technically saving? And is there an expansion for the front for a new tap room in the future? So we're looking at things like that, because I think for those of us that want to grow, use this as an advantage to reinvest into the community. And
I agree 100% with you. If I characterized it a different way, I apologize. But yes, the money is going to be used to invest. But as I said earlier, every brewery is different.
Yeah,
some may use it to pay off debt.
Yeah.
Some, like Great Lakes, may use it to invest.
Yep.
But yes, it's not going to stay in people's pockets.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. You mentioned can tax at one point during the conversation, and the aluminum that we've talked about. There's long been a call to eliminate that 9-cent, and I'm air quotes here, environmental fee, environmental levy, right, on non-refillable beer containers. You've spoke about it before in the media, and you spoke about it before here on the show, but it seems it's really on the table now at Queen's Park. I think it was part of that, the budget, the message in writing. How significant would the removal of this tax be, again, with everything that's going on?
If the government just simply announced tomorrow they were getting rid of that tax, it would be equivalent to the 50% tax cut we just got. So it would be massive. I have long advocated that instead of just removing the can tax, what we need to do is get rid of the complexity. Right now, craft breweries pay 3 taxes: basic tax, volume tax, and this can tax. It's too complicated.
And it's kind of like a 3.5, because you have to determine your volume. Is it kegs or is it cans?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it works out to be $80 a hectoliter. And, in our Save Local Craft Beer campaign, which thank you to everybody for contributing, because that helped push our advocacy over the finish line. We always talked about Ontario paying 8 times more than Alberta. So a small craft brewery in Ontario is paying $80 a heck, which is a combination of those 3 taxes: basic, volume, can. Alberta's $10.
Yeah.
So again, the way I would characterize that, if the government announced they're getting rid of the can levy tomorrow, that'd be great news. But I'd rather see them just get rid of the 3 taxes, merge them into one basic tax, and lower them, because it would accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah. Other than what you've just mentioned too, with all the wins, what will the OCB and the OCB Board of Directors be working on after 2026? So after a lot of these things are kind of fleshed out, anything come to mind?
Well, we're so focused right now on finishing the play because there's still so much work left to be done that it's hard to think beyond that. But I'll give you one example. When retail expansion was announced, what wasn't announced was that craft breweries can open more than 2 retail stores, which is right now the limit.
Yep.
Which to me isn't fair.
You have to have a brewery attached to it,
which makes it even more onerous.
Yeah, 100%.
Right now, a craft brewery simply can't open a retail store if it isn't attached to an operating brewery.
Or under a different subsidiary of a different company.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that has to go.
100%.
It's not for everybody, but I still think Ontarians would flock to Ontario craft beverage stores. I've always had this vision in my mind of an Ontario craft emporium that only carried Ontario craft beer, Ontario craft wine, Ontario craft cider, Ontario craft spirits. I think this whole support local wave that's going on would lead people to come to those stores and support them for all the reasons we talked about earlier.
So this would be like in your vision, in addition to the LCBO beer store, grocery, convenience.
Yes.
And yep. Is that something you're pushing?
We have long advocated for it to government, but the way government works is we've kind of put it on the back burner now.
One step at a time.
Because tax is by far the most important thing. So if we can push tax and the other fees we talked about earlier across the finish line by, let's call it the March 2026 spring provincial budget, we'll look at it after that.
When you mentioned the brewery operating more than 1 or 2 stores, you were probably sick of me saying that for years in your ear, saying there's no reason why Great Lakes can't open a Windsor retail store, an Ottawa retail store, a Barrie retail store, wherever, without having a production facility attached to it. If a bar and restaurant can go out and sell beer to go now, why can't a brewery go out to, do a pop-up without getting, different licensing and just sell beer to go? It just, it's something that I think is just an easy win. And I do remember an MPP, I won't say who, but he said it's as easy as taking a pencil, flipping it upside down with an eraser and erasing one word. And I said, if it's that easy, why can't you do it? He goes, well, maybe one day. So that was many, many years ago. But, hopefully in my time, that'll happen. But I can't let you on this show either without asking about the beer store. I can't. With all their closures lately, what are you hearing from them?
I really don't know. I'm not privy to what their future plans are. I think everybody knows that the MFA is gone right now.
Master Framework Agreement.
Right now we're in the interim transition agreement, which ends at the end of this year, I believe. And then there's the third leg of it that ends in 2030. Yeah. So as of 2030, the beer store will be treated exactly the same as any other retailer in Ontario. What is going to happen to the beer store between now and 2030? I don't know. Only they would know. But yes, we're seeing a lot of closures. Obviously, they're focused on the logistics side of their business, which they're very good at. They may selectively keep stores open. I really don't know. I think the big question in all this is what's going to happen to the deposit return system, which is in the news these days. And
a lot of that is on the third part of what you said. I think it goes to 2030 with them, that they're kind of controlling that. We've lost a lot of listings in the last number of months with the impending closures of some of these stores that we invested into. That said, the beer store has been a great partner of ours for a while. If there was other OCB members coming to you as the OCB president and the team, what would you kind of say to them about working with the beer store right now?
Well, having worked there for 6 years, I know a lot of people that are still there. I've got a lot of time for the staff that work at the beer stores. I think they're hardworking, dedicated, great people. I think you brought up the point that I would bring up to someone asking what should they do with the beer store. It's not cheap to get into the system. There is a significant upfront listing fee, and then there's a fee per store. And if one of those stores closes 6 months later, you're going to lose a lot of that capital investment. And that's happening right now. And there is a policy whereby you can get some of that money back depending on when the store closes, or you can do a 2-for-1 transfer. But at the same time, it's not as good as keeping that full listing in the store that you bought it in. So
there's a reason you buy a listing in a certain store, is because you know you've done the research. And
that would be my caution flag. They obviously know what they're doing. They've been in business for 100 years, but just be very careful before you invest.
I think you brought up a great little point there, and I have to go back and do some research. 1927 is when the first beer store opened. Something like that. So coming up on 100 years.
Correct.
Look at that. Okay. Some soapbox time. We've talked about the budget. We've talked about retail. We've talked about red tape reduction and all the things that you and the OCB are going to be working on in the future. But now jump on the soapbox, because you're good at this. June 17th, the OCB will be having their annual AGM at Great Lakes, which we're very happy to host. There's an election taking place for board seats. When you were here last, you explained the makeup of the board, but I think it bears repeating again if you can. What does the structure look like, and what does the board do?
The board's comprised of, it depends on how it shakes out, but call it roughly 14 brewery members. Mm-hmm. There is
that represent
everyone.
Every member, yeah.
So there's 4 board members in the under 5,000 hec category that represent all the under 5,000 hec breweries. There's 4 in the 5 to 15. There's going to be 4 in the 15 to 40 coming up. And there's 2 in the 40 plus, because that's all that exists right now in Ontario. So that's the total of 14. What do they do? We basically discuss strategy. We discuss, we make sure we're all aligned on what the OCB stands for, where we want to be in 5 years, and to the discussion we had earlier, what are the priorities for the association? Because there's no shortage. Like, there's 100 things we could be working on, but what are the top 5, 6 that we need to get aligned on? And then they give me the marching orders to go make it happen. So that's I'm oversimplifying it, but that's what happens.
And I think, to your credit, you've really simplified. You have simplified, but you've also simplified the 3 main things, or the 5 main things that you went out, because I've been in this industry a while now, and I can remember it's like everyone wants everything. One brewery will want this, one brewery this, but boil it down to, what are your top 3 asks in government? Because you can't go in with 10 things, because they're going to pick the easiest. Number 10, they're going to pick the easiest and go, oh, look, we gave you what you asked for. So now you guys are a cohesive voice, and it's been stronger than ever. What are you looking forward to on June 17th? Are you looking for a healthy debate, a big election? What's kind of the attitude right now?
Well, it's June 17th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Great Lakes Brewery in Etobicoke. Everyone is welcome. All members of the association are welcome. Those who receive our member blast will see more information on it today. And by the way, please RSVP, because we need to know how many people are coming to set it up properly, to order enough food, etc. So please look to your member blast this afternoon. And if you are interested, please RSVP. But it should be pretty basic, like it is every year. It's about recapping the year that's gone by. It's about electing the new board of directors. It's about celebrating our successes, listening to questions from those that are there. If we do an online component, which I think we're going to do, we can take questions virtually as well. And it's 2 hours. It's a necessary policy as part of our bylaws. So it's just so
things. Now, consumers listening out there, this is really inside baseball, but I just wanted people to get a glimpse into what the OCB is and what they do and who's involved. So thank you for sharing that, because it is a very integral part as we grow as an industry, that the OCB continues to be the voice for craft brewers, independent craft brewers in this province. Here's the part that I let you do your OCB conference thing, because we have one coming up in November, and tell me all about it. Tell consumers all about it. Tell breweries all about it.
It's the one event a year, 2-day event, where literally the whole industry is together under one roof. So a lot of things happen. We have Canada's largest trade show for the craft brewing industry. We have somewhere between 120 and 130 suppliers in the trade show. We're at the Hamilton Convention Center, November 5, 6, same place we were last year. We have 30 to 40 education sessions that are really designed and built to address the key issues in 2025. And you being on the executive committee of the conference would know that better than anyone. And Jeff Talmy from Town Breweries done a great job of chairing the education committee. We bring in keynote speakers that are relevant to the industry in 2025. We have great social events lined up for the evenings. And probably one of the things that goes maybe unnoticed is it's a great time to talk to your peers. A lot of great things happen over the water cooler over a beer. And when you have 1,000 craft brewery reps,
talking,
between beers,
yeah.
When you have that many people under one roof, a lot of great discussions happen.
Collaborations, ideas, recipe sharing, ingredients. Where do you get this? Where do you get that?
It's amazing what happens. So I can't say enough about the conference. I think it's Canada's best. You need to be there. We implemented a new pricing policy this year where, depending on your volume size, it's a flat rate by brewery. Which means, let's say the flat rate was $500 and you want to bring 2 people, great. You want to bring 10 people, great. Your price doesn't change. So we think that's a great benefit to the member breweries. A lot have been really excited about it and taken us up on it. That pricing special expires at the end of this month, June 30th. So again, I talked about the member blast coming out today. You'll see info on the conference. Pay attention to that. Call us. We can take care of you and get signed up by June 30th.
And consumers, like just a Joe Lager out there and Rhonda Ale that are really into craft, if they wanted to go, they could buy a ticket, could they not? As a non-member price?
They could.
Yeah.
They could, but it's really a conference designed for the industry. It's not really meant to be consumer focused. But technically, anyone can buy a ticket. But I would say that there's a lot of social things at night that is a great way to go out and meet some of your favorite breweries. Well, good point. Last year in Hamilton, Collective Arts hosted a party on our final night, and consumers were invited. We had hundreds of Hamiltonians come in and party with us to some great bands at Collective.
Before we take a quick pause in another beer break and ask you some rapid fire questions. Is there anything you want to just tell us about the OCB? Anything that I haven't asked you that you want to just get out there? And I guess in your annual Between Two Fermenters interview?
I'll just say this. I am so appreciative of the members of the association. We now have over 150. That's still half of the industry. And I think a key reason why we got our advocacy over the finish line, May 15th, was because of the voice of the 150. With the Save Local Craft Beer campaign, literally you wrote thousands of letters. And when they land on the Premier's desk, the Minister of Finance's desk, they make a difference. And we're all in this together. We're stronger together. So as I've said many times, if you are not a member of the OCB, you should be. We are the only voice that's advocating for you every day at Queen's Park. We need everyone involved, and that would be my pitch.
There you go. See, told you you're good at this soapbox stuff. Okay, we're going to take a quick beer break, return with some rapid fire questions for Scott to answer. We're going to theme it with about the Ontario budget. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
Well, how's your doodle? Rollin' Baggage here, rollin' solo down here at Sunnyside Beach. I likes to get here nice and early to grabs me some prime sandy real estate. I lays out me towel, slather myself liberally with tannin butter, and soak in some tasty vitamin D. Speaking of tasty, looky in me cooler box. A whole gaggle of Sunnyside Session IPA. Big on the taste, low on the alcohol. A springtime, summertime, anytime treat, and a permanent staple in the grips of me fingers. Oh, and check out the can to see a brand new me. Been lifting some iron to boost me biceps, triceps, and me deltoids. You know what they say, sun's out, guns out. Work your tan and crack a can of Sunnyside Session IPA.
So I think everyone listening knows about the budget, knows about what's next, knows about the conference, knows about the board. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions about the budget, just quick hits here before we wrap things up. So, Scott, number one best thing in the budget as it relates to the industry?
50% tax cut microbrewery tax rate.
Have you heard from other provincial beer associations since the budget was announced? And if so, what have those conversations been like?
A lot of congratulations, a lot of comparing notes because every province is going through the exact same thing.
Alberta and Saskatchewan with markups right now. One word to describe this budget for small breweries.
2 words. Great news.
What's one change in the budget that most breweries might have missed?
The foreshadowing of what's yet to come. So it's not just about the 50% cut. It's everything we talked about earlier.
That's coming in 2026.
Right.
The ball's in the air. The wide receivers caught it. He's just at the 10-yard line to score that touchdown. That's what we're saying?
That's it.
All right. What's one thing on your wish list for 2026 and beyond?
OCB gets to 250 members.
What should brewery owners be most concerned about right now?
The threat south of the border.
Why is supporting local so important?
The money stays in the community. We create jobs. We create economic impact, which is important to the province, the Ministry of Finance, and the Premier's office, who really control our industry.
And can you say that stat again? Was it 60 cents on the dollar?
66 cents on every dollar you spend on a local business in a local community stays in that community. If you buy from a foreign-owned company that's in that community, only 11 cents stays.
And finally, your message to Queen's Park, to Premier Ford, to Minister Bethlen Fawley in one sentence.
It'll be hard to do in one sentence, but thank you very much for the support and the partnership over the last couple of years. We are so excited and over the moon for the changes announced in the May 15th budget, but we're equally excited to work with you to finish the play on everything else that we've been working on together.
And that's it. Mr. Simmons, we're all done. That was a great way to document this huge win for the OCB, something that we, and the industry can look back on and hopefully 50 years with great pride and like I said, hopefully as a time and place that people can point to as a pivotal moment in the history of Ontario craft beer. As usual, thank you for the hard work and the continued advocacy for all of us here in the province. Cheers.
Thanks for having me on. Let's do it again in 1 year and 1 day.
1 year and 1 day. Let's set the clock now. And that's it. That's all, folks. Episode 38, Pints and Politics with Scott Simmons, the president of the Ontario Craft Brewers, has moved from the mash tun to the fermenters. If you enjoyed our conversation or any other episodes, please leave a review or comment wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode was fueled by cans of Summer Ale, a perfect refresher on a hot day with the bright twang of lemon and the fluidity and mildly spicy zip of fresh ginger, and only 4.5%. It's a beaut. And you can find it cans all across Ontario at your local LCBO stores, at both GLB retail locations, and online at greatlakesbeershop.ca for free local home delivery. You can visit the brewery at 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard in Etobicoke or grab some delicious eats and fresh pours at our brew pub at 11 Lower Jarvis Street in Toronto. If you have any content you'd love to hear us discuss on the show, guest ideas, or just want to tell us what you're drinking, drop us a line at podcast@greatlakesbeer.com. Until next time, please remember to keep tipping your glass of fresh GLB in the right direction. Supporting local never tasted so good.
To learn more about what's happening at Great Lakes Brewery, visit greatlakesbeer.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter or follow Great Lakes Beer on your favorite social media platforms.